return to regular session.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Welcome to the April 17th, 2014 meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Township Trustees. If you would, please join me in the most important thing we're going to do tonight, and that's the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second. Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you. We have a public hearing tonight. Those people in the back, there are plenty of seats available. You can move up. Wolfangle Road Sidewalk, State to Bowen. Paul Drury is going to tell us all about it. Paul, I will open that public hearing and ask Paul to tell us about it.
Thank you. This is the Wolfangle Road Sidewalk, and it is proposed between Bowen and State. It's proposed to be constructed on the east side of the road, and currently we're in the process of engineering the project itself. This was a transportation alternatives grant-funded project, so there are multiple steps with any grant-funded project in order, to receive the funding and construct the sidewalks. So we had an open house between 5 and 6 tonight downstairs, and we had quite a few show up, actually. We've mailed the plans to all of the homeowners that are going to be affected, all the property owners along Wolfangle. And Mr. Caruso and I have gone out and met with some of them as well. So we didn't really receive any comments that we weren't aware of, and at this point in the planning process, we're taking feedback from the property owners, making sure that the plans can address those concerns, and just really answering the concerns. So, did you have anything to add at this?
Just that it's been received very favorably by the property owners along Wolfangle, and we seem to be getting a lot of cooperation, so we're happy about that.
So, if you want, that's all I have for now.
That's it?
Yes, unless you had more questions. There are some residents.
Anybody have any questions?
There are some residents here for the open house. So.
Does the board have any questions or comments? If not, we'll ask anyone who's here would like to come and speak regarding this matter. Please come forward or come forward. We'd appreciate you stating your name and address. Anyone want to talk about it? In favor of it? Against it? Love it? Oh, yeah, you better get up there and say, I love it. Wonderful. Nothing? Okay. Well, with that, we will, well, before I close the public hearing, I just would remind you that the topic of doing something on Wolfangle has been going on for a long time. One of the things that we had looked at was actually to see if we couldn't have a, what they call it, a bike berm, and but the road isn't wide enough to allow for that, but would have been a lot less expensive. My only question, Paul, will be, and the same question that others will have, what happens at Bowen?
There's currently a crosswalk there already, and then there's a sidewalk on both sides of Bowen, and actually Steve is going to bring up an aerial of the site. So the sidewalk at Bowen will still be on the east side of Wolfangle, and then once you get south of Bowen, there's a sidewalk on the west side of Bowen, I'm sorry, of Wolfangle. The sidewalk currently in this particular project will terminate at Bowen. However, we are still looking at the east side of Wolfangle to tie into where Valvoline is now. Valvoline is required to construct a sidewalk on their side of Wolfangle once the sidewalk is extended down to that area. Same as Kroger. Kroger owns that vacant sliver of property next to Valvoline. So we anticipate sidewalks on both sides of Wolfangle up to Bowen, and then there are sidewalks on Bowen.
Have we any indication from the Kroger folks regarding what their plans are with all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses?
No.
6?
Well, we have not received any plans lately. We have been in discussions with them. Obviously, they do own the whole block, and most likely will expand in the future, but we have not reviewed any plans recently.
And more than likely, they will be required to build,
It's,
to construct a
right, they
sidewalk.
will, it is a zoning requirement that any new development, commercial development, is required to build a sidewalk along all the street frontages. Same as with new subdivisions, they're required to build a sidewalk on both sides of the street. Those particular homes on Wolfangle are zoned for single-family, so if or when Kroger decides to move forward, a zone change request will be necessary, and there will be public hearings for that as well to review the plans. But yes, Kroger would be required. There is a sidewalk there now, but if their improvements modify that sidewalk, the sidewalk will have to be replaced. So ultimately, there will be a sidewalk on both sides from Bowen south to Beachmont. From Bowen north up to State, the sidewalk will be on the east side of the road.
Good, thank you.
Mhm.
If there's nothing else, well, we will close the public hearing. And if the board is prepared, we could move forward with an action.
I move to authorize staff to proceed with preparing bid materials and securing easements for a sidewalk along the east side of Wolfangle Road from Bowen to State.
Second. Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. And then,
I would also move to authorize the township administrator, upon review by the law director and where the township's contribution does not exceed the minimally required local construction share of $125,000, to enter into agreements with the Ohio Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, and/or Hamilton County Engineers Office to facilitate construction of the TE grant-funded Wolfangle Road sidewalk project.
Second.
any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all. We're going forward. Still like it? Okay.
Great.
Good. Okay, we do have a presentation this evening. Martin Miller, Hamilton County Development Disability Services, going to, once again, give us an update on HCDDS. Martin?
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As you said, my name is Marty Miller. I'm an Anderson Township resident. I previously served on the board of Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services, formerly known as MRDD. I was board president, ending in 2012. And I'm here tonight to speak about our upcoming levy. As many of you know, Issue 3 is on the May 6th ballot, and it's operating levy for HCDDS. That's a straight renewal levy. It will not increase taxes, and it accounts for 71% of the agency's operating funds, or an annual budget of about $100 million. The remainder of the funds come primarily from state and federal sources, and some other sources as well. I'm currently a board member of an organization known as People for DD Services. It's a nonprofit set up to run the levy campaign. I'd like to take you all back to, say, time about 50 years ago. Parents in Anderson Township were starting to get confused, wandering around the halls of Wilson, trying to figure out why somebody designed an elementary school in Ohio with a detached gym. People were going to Coney Island. Reds had just signed a young player from the west side named Pete Rose. Where we are right now, I think, was probably a family farm. Now imagine we're at a hospital. There's two new parents expecting their first child. Dad's out in the waiting room, chain smoking on a second pack of Lucky Strikes, waiting for the news. Then a nurse comes out, rather solemn look in her face, tells him you have a son. He goes back later, meets with his wife, doctor comes in, proceeds to tell them that he has bad news. Your son was born with Down syndrome. Although he probably didn't use those words. He may have said your son is mentally retarded or a mongoloid. It's a term that some people probably remember too. Doctor probably told him, go home, forget about your son, tell your family and friends that your son died in childbirth, give him up for adoption, he'll become a ward of the state, you'll have more kids, just move on, forget about it. Young parents still refuse to give up and they bring the child home, but they lack some of the really support services. Their child really is not welcome at the local elementary school. They really don't have many places to turn. Probably are shunned by family, friends, and neighbors. People are afraid of individuals with developmental disabilities. Across town's another family. They made the same choice 30 years prior. They're aging. They have a daughter at home who has a developmental disability. They're worried, wondering about what's going to happen to their daughter. She's never been educated. She has no work opportunities, nowhere to live in the community after they're gone. Unfortunately, though, today we live in a community where things are quite different. A community in which my 10-year-old son, Will, who happens to have Down syndrome, received early intervention services from DDS. A caring community in which he attended preschool at Summit Elementary in Mercer. Currently, he attends Wilson, and he's thriving there. Has dozens and dozens of friends, both children with developmental disabilities like him, but also typical kids whose parents call up and invite our son over on play dates. Things are quite different. We live in a community now which embraces individuals such as Ted Kramer, whose heartwarming story last year as a Reds bat boy made national news. And it wasn't for the fact he was a young man with Down syndrome that was the bat boy, but rather because of the effect he had on the Reds players and other people in the community. Today we live in a community where there are far greater opportunities for people like Ted Kramer and my son Will. In fact, there are over 9,000 individuals served by Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services. Of course, the mission of HCDDS is not complete, and the number of individuals served continues to increase, both because of increased prevalence of things such as autism, but also the increased lifespan of individuals with developmental disabilities. HCDDS provides early intervention services for children under the age of 3, primarily in their homes. These services help prepare children for school and lay the groundwork for them achieving their full potential. While the majority of children with developmental disabilities, like my son Will, attend their regular public school, some are best served in alternative settings. So HCDDS operates 2 schools for children who will be best educated in that setting. DDS also operates a number of satellite classrooms around the counties where they work hand in hand with the local public schools to facilitate the education of individuals. Beyond school, one of the big issues now is what happens after individuals such as my son graduates high school. To that end, HCDDS provides transition services to help plan and guide the transition from childhood to adulthood. And as adults, HCDDS provides a number of services along with community partners such as Ohio Valley Goodwill and Easter Seals Tri-State. Adults receive vocational training, non-vocational skills tailored to their needs, including several hundred adults employed at adult centers around the county. Community Services Department also coordinates a variety of other services for adults and children, including residential care, respite care, personal care, supported employment, transportation, and many more things. Over the next 5 years, Hamilton County DDS is going to particularly focus on further integration of people with disabilities into the community and building the capacity of community organizations to meet the needs of people with disabilities. So the agency is working hand in hand with a number of other nonprofit organizations in the community to allow us to serve more individuals given the limited funding we have. As I said, the countywide levy provides 71% of the agency's budget. Without the levy passage, it's difficult to imagine what services will have to be cut and how the remaining ones will be funded. This critical levy is up for renewal on May 6th, and I'd like to encourage everyone in Anderson Township to come out and vote and also to support the levy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Martin, can I ask you a question? We have been told, some of us, by folks, and we don't know if it's fact or not, that Anderson Township has become somewhat of a magnet, as it relates to families who have children with developmental disabilities, because we do, the school system, Forest Hill School System, and your organization do such a great job with them. Would that be a reasonably true statement?
I think it may be to some extent, and certainly Anderson has a very good reputation, particularly with the school district, as do a number of other school districts in Hamilton County. I'm not sure I would necessarily consider it a magnet or not, but it could be. I've not heard that from other people, though.
I've heard it through folks related to the Forest Hill School District and concerned, because it does impact their overall costs, which then
Certainly.
impacts taxpayers' costs.
Yes.
So, to some degree, I guess, is your answer.
Yes,
Perhaps.
it possibly has.
Good.
But I will say, too, that I've heard from dozens of parents and teachers over the years about the benefits of the integrated education and number of children with developmental disabilities in our school system. I've heard that repeatedly from people, and it's amazing to see the way the other children treat my son and look out for him and care for him. And it's something that warms the heart, and I think it says a lot about not only our schools, but also our entire community that happens.
People. Right. Thank you, Martin. As always, we appreciate you coming and giving us an update.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
A number of years ago, we solicited all the larger governmental entities in this area to try to get them to take some responsibility in preparing a road, what did we call it, street? A road construction overview. And it fell on deaf ears for a number of years, and then finally everybody else backed up, and Steve Severs came forward and has been providing us with it. I don't know if anybody else uses it. We ought to sell it to the other communities, but Steve, you want to give us an update?
Good evening. I think the term we used at the point was traffic czar, which fell on deaf ears by the county commissioners. I just want to provide the board, and we have been doing this for over 10 years now, an update on road construction projects that are planned for our area for the coming summer. This is published on our website. I have copies outside as well for those that are here in the audience under Anderson Township News, front and center. You all have a list in front of you as well, and I'll touch on the map that we have there with some of the highlights of things going on in our area. And as you can see, there is a lot going on in our area, particularly out to the east, and all you have to do is venture that way to see some of that work occurring. The project at 32 has been ongoing since last summer, as has the project on Clough Pike. What is somewhat complicated matters going to our east now is they're now working at 275 in Beechmont. We had a meeting on Wednesday with the Ohio Department of Transportation. It's an annual meeting that we host here for the businesses on Beechmont Avenue, and talk considerably about that project and the maintenance of traffic for that project. And we're kind of communicating to them the concerns that have been expressed, and with the one-way closure of Clough Pike that went into effect last Thursday through the first week of August, we're beginning to see a lot of pressures out that way as well, as we saw last fall when it was closed. So ODOT is looking at ways of ensuring that access continues through that area, but you'll see those are the three projects to our east. To our north, you see some work going on in the 8 Mile area with Duke Energy doing some work, and we were involved with that as part of the green space property that we own there. They're installing new transmission lines up in that vicinity. If you look towards the north and to the west, over in this vicinity, there'll be completion of work on Worcester Pike through Fairfax with some of the work that happened last year. Of course, our project on Clough Pike that is well underway here in the center of the township, and some MSD work down by State Road 32 and Beechmont Avenue. Other work that we're looking at right now, there's just minor activities as far as pre-planning for the CFI. Most of the work that occurred last summer was off the roadway, and we don't expect a whole lot of work to occur until probably next spring, although there's a possibility if the project is advanced, it could start later this fall, but it's doubtful. Other work that you see on there, there's some work that's envisioned for Hopper Road, the county engineer's office, some work up on Newtown Road as well by the county engineer's office. As far as our projects, Mr. Shelley can speak to those much better than I could as far as the extensive amount of work that he's doing on township infrastructure in the 120 miles, which is not reflected on this map, ranging from curb and sidewalk repair to microsurfacing of some of the roadways. But we do, like I said, we maintain that, and Mr. Jackson, you're right, we we did that to protect our own best interest. There's only a few ways in and out of this community, and we want to ensure that those stay open, and we're doing our best to work on that access out to our east for folks that are coming into the township or our residents that need to get out east on a daily basis. So if there's any questions, happy to answer those, but it's a smooth process. People come to expect it, our neighboring communities and the jurisdictions, and we'll be sending this out to them as well as we thank them for their contributions to that.
Steve, at that meeting, I know you were going to discuss with him the fact that the Clough Pike project, even though it's in Claremont County, has tremendous impact on State Route 125, Ohio Pike, which then puts pressure back all the way to almost a 5-mile road, and the best fix for that would be to have 2 traffic officers perhaps somewhere there at 275 and at Withamsville, Tabasco. Did they have any interest in that?
They are very aware, and are monitoring the flow on Beachmont. Of course, their primary concern is making sure the traffic's not backing up on 275, and we communicated them the other day. We've not seen that, so the extent that that continues could afford them the chance to give more green light time on Beachmont Avenue to help some of that flow. The long-term project, and the reason they're doing that project at the intersection, it's going to substantially widen that interchange, or that whole roadway. There'll be 3 lanes both directions under 275 on Beachmont. There'll be 3 lanes coming west over to Independence Drive, where Home Depot and Bob Evans are at. There'll be 3 lanes going east to the Shell station just east of 9 Mile. There'll also be 2 left turn lanes coming off of Mount Carmel Road onto Beachmont, which should help the situation on Mount Carmel, and they're doing substantial work right now on 9 Mile as well. So when it's all said and done, it'll greatly improve it. It would be helpful to have that done first, and the Clough project is kind of drug on. And you mentioned the Clough project, even though it's not in Anderson Township, we're doing our best to try to note to folks, and it's hard to kind of separate because there's so much work going on in Clough, but you'll see the Clough Pike detour. We're continuing to put information out to our residents on our website about what's going on to our east as well. In not too distant future, we can conceivably have 3 projects going on in Clough Pike, in addition to some subdivisions and other things. So for better or for worse, at least we're doing it all at the same time, and people can avoid that corridor rather than piecemealing it out over the next 3 or 4 years. So, yeah.
So they are monitoring the light at 275 getting off, because Tuesday I noticed a pretty dangerous situation. The traffic getting off on off of 275 coming from Coney, coming around. I know it's outside the township, but I mean, I've never seen it back up that badly onto the freeway. And the traffic light, it's backing up where that right lane is totally stopped. And they need to monitor that, because in the evening when the sun's behind you, you don't see those brake lights, and someone's going to get in a really bad accident there at some point. It's
a very difficult situation for them. And what's complicated things now versus the fall is, in the fall at least, you had the full functioning of 32 and 275.
Right,
and a lot of folks have avoiding that interchange, and they're getting off on Beachmont. So there's even a greater volume.
But they do have someone there at the light controlling it?
They don't have it, but they can alter that, and they frequently come out. We've invited them out, and they've made changes on 5 Mile and 275. They don't have the officers. They do have the officers. I believe they had them stationed up at 32 when that light went in. I'm not sure if they still do, but we've encouraged them to do that, and that's a message we'll carry back to Union Township as well.
We've got to keep the pressure on them. They don't sit out there and have to drive down. How did you drive down to 52 and
back up 9 Mile to cross? Yes. It's the easiest way to get to the Roll Arena, especially at 5:30 at night. So,
thanks, Steve.
Is that disco night at the Roll? Just checking. Meet you there.
Paul's going to talk about the Tree City Township Growth Award.
Yes, thank you. Last Friday, Southwest Ohio had the annual Tree City USA Awards. This year, I'm happy to say and present to you that the township received an award for our 5 years, continuous years of meeting all the Tree City USA requirements. And then on top of the Tree City USA requirements, there's an opportunity for a Growth Award. And there are 4 categories for a Growth Award, and I'll just read this from the Arbor Day Foundation. The Growth Award highlights innovative programs and projects, increased commitment to resources for urban forestry, and provides an opportunity to share new ideas and successes across the country. So there are 4 categories. One is education and public relations. One is partnerships. The third is planning and management, and the fourth is tree planting and maintenance. So the township applied for the education and public relations. We've had several steering team committees, street tree committee members go through the Tree Commission Academy in 2013. We also had training, young tree pruning training here for our public works staff. We regularly post articles, and these come from the Street Tree Committee members in the Anderson Insights and also in the Forest Hills Journal. So based on that, I'm proud to say that we were a recipient of a growth award. To put this in perspective, there are 39 communities in Southwest Ohio in our region that are Tree City USA members, and there are only 8 out of those 39 that receive growth awards. So we were 1 out of the 8 in the first township. So
Great.
I'd like to present these to you.
Thank you, and thank the committee for their hard work. Thank you. You figured that one out. Good. Thanks, Paul. Mrs. Earhart's going to tell us about the American Society for Public Administration Outstanding Community Volunteer Award.
Yes. Anderson Township, in conjunction with the Forest Hills Local School District, the Anderson Township Park District, and the Anderson Area Chamber of Commerce, had the pleasure of nominating Anderson Township resident Greg Harshfield, who has been extending his talents to the community through the AroundAndersonTownship.com website. He has been keeping residents informed, all on a volunteer basis, and has done a tremendous amount for each of our organizations and for the residents to make people aware of new programs in the township and just keeping them updated on a weekly and even daily basis. So Greg was nominated, and he received the award. And Mr. Girth and I attended the ceremony last Friday at the Phoenix downtown. He was presented with the Community Volunteer of the Year Award from this organization. He will be honored again on May 8th on Fountain Square during Public Service Recognition Week at noon on Fountain Square, May 8th. So we want to thank him for all his hard work.
Great. Thank you. State Representative Stoutberg's not here, but I think he gave Mrs. Earhart an update.
Yes, I should have stayed at the podium. Yes, he has a scheduling conflict this evening. He wanted the board to be aware of the fact that the mid-biennium budget review, the state's operating budget review, has been passed, and due to the complexity of that 1,000-plus page bill, very little else has moved within the House. House Bill 277, the annexation bill that we have had on our radar for quite some time, has not moved. The House and Senate are in recess until May 6th, at which point they will begin to try to move that bill forward. So that is the report he asked me to pass along to the board.
So you have to pass the bill to know what's in the bill. Who ever heard that one before? Thank you.
Nowhere good.
At every meeting, we set aside time for public to come forward. If any individuals here wish to address this board, we welcome them to come forward and make non-repetitive points, limiting comments to a maximum of 5 minutes, and we do ask that you state your name and address for the record. So the line will form right over here. If anyone would like to.
Don't all rush up at once. Take your time.
Maybe we just pass the mic around.
That's right.
That might work. Anyone like to come forward? If not, we'll close the public forum portion of the meeting and go into trustee comments. Mr. Girth?
The only thing I wanted to say was I had the pleasure of doing a ride-along last night with the Sheriff's Department. Deputy Jason Hovkamp, is that how you pronounce his name, last name? And it was great. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of action, which is probably a good thing. So, yeah. But no, it was I learned a lot about, how the guys work their shifts, how they cover the township, and especially how they interact with people, which was actually one of the most encouraging things, because I know that, obviously safety and protection is is top of the list in priority, but just, the deputies' interaction with just, talking to neighbors and stuff is really part, the community engagement piece that you don't get to see a lot, and it was great to be part of that. So thanks for the opportunity to tag along.
Did you get to do the siren like you wanted to?
I might have done it
Excellent.
once.
Are you going to do it again next week?
I might, yeah. Maybe with the fire department, right
There
along.
you go. Mr. Pappas.
I just wanted to wish everybody, coming up this weekend is Easter weekend, very important holiday for those of us Christians, and I just wanted to say Happy Easter to everyone in the township and staff, and have a wonderful and blessed weekend.
Thank you. Just one item that, because it's not on the agenda, I wanted to tell Suzanne Parker at our February meeting, Suzanne had announced the new cost for the Otarma insurance renewal, and it was, I forget, something like 8%, appeared to be an 8% increase, but just yesterday, she gave us the update on the rebate that we get back, and all of us, and I was concerned at that February meeting and said, hey, if this continues, we're going to have to look elsewhere for the insurance. Well, with the rebate, they're right back in line, a third of 1% increase, so thank you very much. I guess we won't have to look at it next year after all. So, good, thank you. With that, we'll go forward to the crack fiscal officer, Mr. Ken Dietz.
Thank you. No appropriation changes. We have the financial reports from the end of March, the fund report, appropriation report, and the revenue reports. So,
Excellent.
I'd also like to say Happy Easter to everyone.
Thank you. You know, if we had extensive staff like you have, we'd probably do better too, wouldn't we? Thanks, Ken. We have some minutes before us. One of those, Mr. Girth was not in attendance, and so we have historically not voted, or has historically abstained. We don't have to by Robert's rules, but we do it. So, beginning with minutes for February 20th, 2014.
A motion to approve the February 20th, March 20th, and April 3rd, 2014 minutes.
Second.
With minor
Minor
corrections.
corrections.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. And then we have the March
Motion to
6th.
approve the March 6th, 2014 minutes with minor corrections.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Abstain.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. There you go. How many times?
He's
are you
wanted
going
to do that for
abstain?
quite
Yeah.
some time.
Yeah.
How many times will he be abstaining
All
this
right,
year?
let's hope it's not much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Law Director, Margaret Comey.
No report.
We love you, Margaret. Planning and zoning. Once again.
Once
All
again,
yours.
we just have one item under our department. Back in February, we issued a request for proposals for the reformatting of the township's zoning resolution, which is this document, and parts of it date to 1949 from the county. The intent of the request is for reformatting purposes only, not to rewrite the zoning resolution, but to reformat it. It's a technical document, but the intent is to make it easy for everyone to understand, for staff to interpret, for the public, the general public, for residents, for businesses to take our document and understand what they can and can't do. Many times we get calls from residents, they can't even figure out what type of fence is allowed in their yard because it's very hard to read and very hard to find. And it's also been modified over the years, and it's time to reformat the zoning resolution. So we received 5 proposals, and staff reviewed and evaluated these proposals and are recommending Ratio Architects. This is a firm out of Indianapolis, and their proposals attached in your packet, and we are requesting authorization for the township administrator to enter into a contract. The entire process we anticipate will only take about 6 months to reformat the resolution.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move to authorize the Township Administrator, upon review by the Law Director, to enter into a contract with Ratio Architects, Inc. to reformat the Anderson Township zoning resolution in an amount not to exceed $22,500.
Second.
Discussion? There is no question that this will benefit our citizens who want to look at zoning issues. You know, you guys are so used to it, you understand it, but boy, it is a pain in the hoover. And, I'm sorry, you know what it is.
Is that a technical term? Or is that
It's not Irish either. Anyway, it's great.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Matt Guy.
Just have one brief issue here. It is time to renew the annual liquor license for all the liquor permit premise in Anderson Township. And I was going to give our official report that we don't have any objections and there are no current issues with any of the liquor license in Anderson Township at this time.
Good.
How many? Of course, you have all kinds because you have Bs and Cs and all carry.
Yeah, the list
whatever.
is quite extensive, but we don't have any problem areas as of now. So the annual renewal for 2014 will go off without any objection from us.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion in response to the annual request from the Ohio Department of Commerce for board guidance in its annual review of liquor license for all permit holders within Anderson Township, not to object to any such renewals.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
The only other thing I have is that the board or residents may notice a motorcycle, sheriff's motorcycle in the area.
I did.
We have a new motorcycle unit. It's 4 officers. One's going to be assigned to each district. Sergeant Steve Raker, who's a 21-year veteran with the Sheriff's Office, has been assigned to give most of his attention towards District 5, Anderson Township. The motorcycles are very versatile. They can get into places that cars cannot, so we're going to, when we have some of these traffic complaints, we're going to be able to give them to the motorcycle unit, and he'll be able to address them. This is just something that's funded by the county. It's at no cost to the township, but it's another resource that we can use.
Excellent. Thank you.
And Mr. Girth, I appreciate your kind words. He said Jason Hovakamp does a fine job, as all the officers do at the district, and I know, Mr. Pappas, you're going to want to come out and ride sometime soon. And you missed a fairly decent event that happened just before 6 this morning. It didn't have anything to do really with our officers. We did help apprehend the suspect, but Campbell County had a vehicle pursuit that came through Anderson Township, and the stolen vehicle wrecked into a home in Union Township, causing significant damage. One of our officers went out with a K-9 officer, and they did about a 5-mile track and eventually did find the individual hiding in the bed of a pickup truck. So it didn't directly affect the township, but we were able to give them a hand, so.
All done.
That's all I have.
Lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
I know we talked about this at our interim meeting, but when we have this vast audience here, we need to repeat it. You really need to thank your detectives for the effort they made in apprehending those two fellows that pretty much responsible for all the break-ins most of, if not all, the break-ins that we were having. And I think
Mrs. Earhart
it's
can
very...
attest to the fact that they've dropped off. I mean, I give her a daily report of the reports, and these theft from vehicles have just gone away.
It's great that it does relieve a lot of people, because, you know, there are a lot of rumors always out there about these things. It's good. I hope more people...
Well, and again, we are still trying to get the message out not to leave valuables visible in the car. So many of these, there were persons just left on the front seat of the car, and their method was to use a BB gun to shoot out the window, reach in, take it, and then there's a current trend that they will go to Kroger and buy large dollar amount gift cards, because they can barter those gift cards as if they're cash with people on the street for something of value.
You know, that's the sad part about the whole thing, Matt, is that this is indicative of the problem we're having, at least in this part of the country, and I'm sure across the whole U.S., problems with heroin and how it's just...
That's exactly, and the heroin dealers are accepting these large $200, $300, $400 gift cards as payment for drugs. Luckily for us, one of the suspects that you're mentioning even though he was using stolen credit card and he was getting gift cards, he actually used his own Kroger Plus card when making the purchase.
Well, he wanted to get those fuel points, I mean,
So that one was pretty easy to find.
duh.
I'll be sure, I've mentioned that to him, but I'll pass it along again.
Good, yes, please let them know. We truly appreciate their effort, and we're glad they did it so quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Public Works Department.
Greetings from your friendly neighborhood Public Works
Got
Department.
his name. It's Richard Shelley is your name.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You just have two items before you tonight. Steve addressed them earlier. They are on the list of construction streets. They're available on the website. I have released that to Lisa, and it's out in our magazine. I appreciate her help for getting that word out to us, to our public. But the two items you have before you tonight is acceptance of the 2014 curb and sidewalk replacement program. We were on the street with an engineer's estimate at $850,000. The low bidder and most successful bidder at this point was R.A. Miller. Mr. Miller has done several projects with us in the past with no issue on any of those.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I move that this board hereby accepts the bid of $830,386 from R.A. Miller Construction Company, deemed to be the most responsive and responsible bidder for the 2014 curb and sidewalk replacement project in accordance with the bid plans and specifications, together with a 10% contingency for maximum appropriation of $913,425 in TIF and road and bridge funds. Further, this board hereby authorizes and directs the Township Administrator to give timely notice of award to the contractor and, after consultation with the Law Director, to enter into contract with R.A. Miller Construction Company in accordance with their bid for the 2014 curb and sidewalk replacement project.
Would you mind repeating that?
Thanks. I'll get right on that.
Second.
Any discussion?
Don't like him.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
At this point, that's only a few lines shorter than the entire contract. But we're getting there. The second item I have before the board tonight is the Bartle Roads sidewalk improvement. That has been a project that has been discussed in this room and throughout before. We are coinciding this work with the work that is taking place on Clough Pike through the efforts of Tom Caruso and Paul and Steve. We have backed off and pushed and got this to a point where it goes out for bid, begins construction right about the time school ends, and opens up with the Clough Pike rehab work. Essentially, it is to address a section of connection, if you will, of sidewalk from Turpin High School down Bartles, past the Historical Society's property, and tie into Clough Pike.
Do we have a motion?
I move that this board hereby accepts the bid of $182,410 from Smith Construction, deemed to be the most responsive and responsible bidder for the Bartles Road Sidewalk Improvements Project, in accordance with the bid plans and specifications, together with a 10% contingency, for a maximum appropriation of $200,651 in road and bridge funds. Further, this board hereby authorizes and directs the Township Administrator to give timely notice of award to the contractor, and after consultation with the Law Director, to enter into a contract with Smith Construction in accordance with their bid for the Bartles Road Sidewalk Improvements Project.
Do we have a second?
Yes. Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Nice work.
Thank you.
These two projects are going to be finished about the same time?
The paving, the curb and sidewalk will be a little later in the summer.
No, I'm talking about the sidewalks.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Bartles and Clough are scheduled to be done and open before school starts back.
Got it. So both
Yes.
sections will be done. Thank you. Fire and Rescue Department Chief Mark Over. Thank you, Mark. Township Administrator Vicki Earhart.
Yes, good evening again. The first item before the board is an amendment to a resolution that the board adopted earlier this year. The state of Ohio requires that each elected official attend sunshine law training, open meetings, and public records training one time during their term. And the board does have the opportunity to designate staff members to attend that training on their behalf, especially since staff members are typically in the position of responding to public records requests. So the board had previously enacted a motion that would designate Betty Cowan to serve as Mr. Jackson's designee. And Betty had a situation where she was unable to attend the training, so Allison Hodson took over that position, and we just have a motion that would amend the prior board action to that effect.
I move to amend Resolution 14-0220-05, replacing Betty Cowan with Allison Hodson as designee in order to attend Sunshine Law certification training provided by the Ohio Attorney General's Office and as required by Ohio Revised Code 149.43E1 on behalf of Russell L. Jackson, Jr.
Second.
Discussion? They dumped me again, right? Wait a minute, we're going to turn the lights out?
I know.
We lost our crowd.
We lost our
Kenny?
crowd.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item before the board is one of historical preservation. The township owns a large piece of green space known as the Turpin site down on Clough Pike, on State Route 32 across from Clough Pike. This property has been on the National Historic Registry since the late 70s, and any artifacts that are found on that site are to be preserved. The motion before the board would authorize a memorandum of understanding with the Cincinnati Museum Center that would ensure that the township would retain ownership of those artifacts, but at the same time guarantee that they would be preserved for future generations. So I would ask the board's authorization to enter into this MOU.
I move to authorize the Township Administrator to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Cincinnati Museum Center as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. There are two items arising from executive session discussion this evening. The first is the board's appointment of a park commissioner. Ms. Stocker's current appointment expires the second Monday of May. There is a motion before the board.
I move to reappoint Angie Stocker to the Anderson Township Board of Park Commissioners effective May 13th, 2014, with term expiring the second Monday of May 2017.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is appointments to the Township's Economic Development Committee. There have been a couple of members that have stepped down for various reasons, and these would replace those individuals and add a representative from the school district, should the board so desire.
Considering I don't have the motion.
I had it here before, and now it's gone. Do you have one?
I don't either, so
I do now.
we do now.
I'd like to make a motion. I move to appoint Dr. Stephen Fagans
Yes.
from Anderson Mercy Hospital and Dr. Dallas Jackson from the Forest Hills Local School District as members of the Anderson Township Economic Development Committee for 2014.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. And lastly, Ms. Parker has an update for the board.
My report this month is very brief, simply to update the board that we're looking at about 1,100 households currently enrolled in the Duke Energy Retail Aggregation Endorsement.
How many did you say?
About 1,100,
That's what I thought you said.
yes.
Wow.
Since the initial mailing, we've seen enrollments taper off, which is typical. I started working yesterday with Duke to draft another letter that will be mailed to all the households so that we can continually try to sweep those addresses and notify residents who maybe haven't heard about it or just haven't had a chance to enroll. We're seeing that the prices for electricity are going up, and they will continue to go up toward the end of this year. So we really want to push with residents that it's better to at least look at what you're paying and consider your options. It's best to do that sooner rather than later, because there may be an opportunity to enroll and save some significant dollars, especially since the next contract length that Duke is offering runs through May of 2017. And that's significant when you can lock in a price for that long, when we know that prices are going to escalate. So
Excellent.
that's my update.
No, thank you. We got to keep it, getting it out there to the public. eh?
Absolutely.
I think the reason people aren't is simply that they aren't aware of it.
And I saw an article just yesterday on how electric rates are set to skyrocket, actually, this summer. So it would help citizens a lot to lock those rates in.
That's all we have for the board this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, we'll all wish you all a happy Easter, and thank you all for coming. Our next regular monthly board meeting is scheduled for May 15th, 2014, at 6 p.m. If you have any questions, call 688-8400. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
No discussion on that.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you all.